Ukraine continues to put up a strong fight against Russia, despite being outgunned and enduring the brutal attacks that have killed so many innocent people. I want to bring in retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Ben Hodges to talk more about what's happening in Ukraine. He's a former commanding general who led the American forces in Europe from 2014 to 2017. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to start with kind of like an umbrella question. What do you make of Russia's strategy so far? What's working for them? What is not?
The Kremlin has transitioned from their original approach, which was based on the assumption of a rapid collapse of Ukrainian forces and a rapid seizure of critical parts of Ukraine, to a war of attrition, where they deliberately are targeting cities, as your reporters have shown so clearly, and murdering civilians for the purpose of weaponizing refugees. Over almost 2 million already have left Ukraine, and to create pressure on the Zelensky government and on us to do anything to stop this use of terror and murder. So it's a deliberate shift. It's not just frustration. It's a deliberate shift of, okay, let's see if we can break apart the alliance and cause the collapse of the government. The problem for the Russians, of course, is that attrition means you have to have time, you have to have more resources, you have to have the troops to be able to do it. And I don't think the Kremlin has any of those three necessary ingredients for their war of attrition to be successful. But we're still going to see a lot of what you're showing right now for weeks to come.
So General, as you know, Ukraine's resistance has slowed the Russian military down considerably. But presumably, given your understanding of Russian military tactics, Vladimir Putin and his generals, if they were planning this invasion, okay, perhaps they thought a quick strike and it's over in a matter of days. But obviously, there would have been a contingency plan for something just like this. And is that contingency plan indiscriminate bombing of civilians and civilian targets?
Well, of course, we know from history, including recent history, that the Russians have no problem with targeting civilian infrastructure, targeting civilians. They did this, I think most people now are becoming more and more familiar with the Chechen War, where they flattened the city of Grozny. They helped the Assad regime flatten the city of Aleppo. They helped the Assad regime use chemical weapons in Damascus. So this is not a new thing for them, and certainly they've used brute force in further back. I still think that they probably anticipated that they would be successful in the initial plan. And what was revealed, somewhat to my surprise, was they don't have they're not good or skilled at what's required to conduct what we would call joint operational level attack, where you combine air, land, sea, cyber, special forces to get these synchronized benefits of all those things. You have to practice that. I mean, we in the U.S. military practice it all the time. It is very difficult. Plus, they just don't have any experience at doing it. And so I think much of what we've seen has been the result of a gross underestimation of Ukrainian willpower and capability, of our ability to provide logistics, and their a failure to appreciate what was required for them to conduct the operation that they had planned to conduct.
This might be a hard question for you to answer, but we have been sort of following this convoy, this miles-long convoy that is several miles from Kyiv, but not too far. It's kind of slowed to a grinding halt. There's some speculation as to whether or not they needed more support. You have Russian troops that are out there in the cold. I can't imagine that is good for morale or readiness. I'm not sure what this convoy is sitting there for. What do you make of it?
That is a wonderfully phrased question. It's an example of a poor plan. I mean, a brand new lieutenant would not plan to put thousands of vehicles on a single road where the ground on both sides is impassable because of this time of year, and because Ukrainians, of course, have even exacerbated that by opening some of the reservoirs and flooding the ground on both sides of the road. So they are totally road bound, but because of the terrain. But also, what you see in the picture there, they're closed up with each other. This is a sign of undiscipline. They have no sergeants that would force vehicles to be further apart to avoid becoming a target. It's human nature that when soldiers are scared, they begin to come together closer. This is human nature, and only through training and discipline and having sergeants push them apart would you be able to counter that. So what we see is not a convoy, but it's the world's largest parking lot. It's a massively fat target that's not going anywhere. So the Ukrainians are developing the ability to pick at this thing, interdict it, and it's going to be there for a long time. And the final interesting point of this, of course, it was planned, I believe, to support with logistics the assault or the capture of Kyiv. So what's happening instead, this convoy, because they're sitting there, the vehicles are running nonstop because it's quite cold. So soldiers are going to leave the vehicles running to keep the vehicle warm. And it has become the self-licking ice cream cone of consuming all the supplies, the fuel and the rations that it was meant to bring to the fight.
General, you raise an interesting point, and I'm just sort of dumbfounded and astounded by what I've seen just over the last couple of days, specifically as it relates to the Russian military. I mean, this column, which is on a road, going back to my very first Army ROTC class, where they wouldn't even let us walk on roads if we were conducting exercises for a fear of a sniper attack or aerial bombardment. I find this absolutely astounding. I find it astounding that the Russians haven't been taking out bridges or airports or communications towers. Instead, as I go back to my earlier point, they're bombing apartment buildings. I mean, I just don't understand. It's kind of fascinating to me that the entire world is perhaps worried about Vladimir Putin and his nuclear weapons, but when it comes to just sort of standard military operations, they seem to be fumbling in the dark.
Well, certainly I overestimated their capability. We've known since 2007 that they had set out on a modernization effort that got tested in 2008 when they invaded Georgia. They stumbled around quite a bit, but were able to overwhelm Georgia, and they still have troops sitting there in 20% of Georgian sovereign territory. After that, they continued to modernize, and they certainly have some technologies that are very effective. Electronic warfare, jamming, and they've always invested heavily in long-range rockets and missiles. But, you know, all the stuff that they did after that, most of the work was done by a narrow slice of the Russian army. Their airborne division, their special forces troops. So, and we started noticing that every operation, it was the same guys. And then, of course, they increasingly depend on the Wagner Group and other mercenary-type organizations that presumably have accumulated some experience that, but even then, when they ran into U.S. Army in Syria back a couple of years ago, you'll remember that they were annihilated. So the fighting capabilities are not just about technology. It's about leadership. And certainly Ukraine has got not only President Zelensky, but they've got a lot of little Zelenskys distributed around Ukraine. Those soldiers are fighting for their country on terrain that they know very well. And the secret sauce that you'll remember from your first day of ROTC class, the secret U.S. military are sergeant commissioned officers, so have years of experience, have been deployed, have been through everything that the Army or the Marine Corps or the Air Force and Navy have, and that they are empowered to make soldiers do the things that help them accomplish a mission and keep them alive. And what we see here is an Army that is bereft of a moral purpose and a non-commissioned officer corps.
In 20 seconds, General, real quick, President Biden is faced with calls to implement a no-fly zone. The world is perhaps apprehensive because Vladimir Putin has nuclear weapons and he's used that as a threat. Is he bluffing?
I believe that Vladimir Putin absolutely would use nuclear weapons. Fiona Hill, I think, said it, and I agree with her. No-fly zone, I signed a letter endorsing it because I want us to do something. But I think that the real threat is not from Russian Air Force, it's from artillery and rockets. And we've got to help the Ukrainians get that at its source.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the privilege.